unlike a traditional, storage website where they're going to find, one or two units in their area and they kind of take what they're given, they'll be able to find many options on our website, from commercial space. They can store near their business. They can store near their residence. The top three things that renters care about when looking for a storage unit are price, security, and location. Location being the most important of those three. The average storage facility is a 30 to 40-minute drive away, according to the Self-Storage Almanac, because they're all zoned industrial, whereas we can find you storage 2 doors down. That's why we're called neighbor.com.
Welcome to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jade Aaron Gross. This is the podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today's interview is sponsored by Building Insurance and Risk. When you invest in real estate, it pays to work with a real estate investor protection specialist to protect yourself and your investment from catastrophic loss. The experts at Building Insurance and Risk focus on real estate investor protection. They provide you with multiple insurance coverage offers and a side-by-side coverage comparison. To learn more, go to buildinginsurancerisk.com. Today, my guest is Joseph Woodbury. Joseph is the founder and CEO of Neighbor.com, marketplace disrupting the $500 billion self-storage industry. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Joseph about how Neighbor.com is disrupting the self-storage business. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CREPN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Joseph Woodbury. Welcome to CREPN Radio.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation, but if you could take just a minute before we get started and share with listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. Came to Utah for school. Went to Brigham Young University. Spent some time kind of on the banking and private equity side of things before landing in consulting. Worked for a consulting firm called Bain and Company. Worked in the Senate for the U.S. Senate Majority Leader, and then we started Neighbor. We've been working on Neighbor for about 6 years now. We launched it here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and to jump to the chase, we've now got active users in almost every city in all 50 states. So it's going quite dramatically across the country, and here we are today.
Awesome. Well, I did a little research preparing for this conversation. And for the listeners, I wonder if you could just start by describing what Neighbor.com is.
Sure. So we're a self-storage marketplace, which enables individuals that have space to rent that space out to people that are in need of storage. And we started in the residential space 6 years ago, a very similar concept to Airbnb, where they allowed people to rent out space for hospitality. We allow people to rent out their garage, their basement, their shed, their driveway for self-storage. And we'll store your neighbor's boat on your driveway or your neighbor's boxes in your garage. Again, that business grew to encompass all 50 states. And then about three and a half years ago, we started working with commercial landowners as well. Owners of office space or retail space or even multifamily, where we'll take, a large office building that may have suffered vacancies, on several floors for the last 3 or 4 years. And we'll take those 1 or 2 floors that have been unable to lease out, we'll convert them to storage and we'll quickly get them to 90-95% occupancy. Similar concept in retail space. You may have a strip mall where you have lots of suites. Some of those suites rent better than others. Maybe the suites in the back haven't had a tenant in them for 5 years. We'll take those suites and we'll rent them out for storage. We do the same thing for parking. Oftentimes, commercial developers are required to build much more parking than they need by city code. We'll take all of your excess parking and we'll rent it out for long-term vehicle storage on our platform. We now work with most of the billion-dollar retail REITs in the country, all across the country in almost every major city. So that's a strong component of our business as well. Overall, our mission is just to take space that is sitting unused, unmonetized, that no one's making money off of, and repurpose it for this extremely fast-growing self-storage industry, which has a national occupancy rate right now of 95%. They can't build space fast enough for this industry. And so we might as well not let space go to waste.
Oh, that's awesome. Especially the expansion of your marketplace from the residential to the commercial. I love that.
Sure.
So let me ask you, so the idea, how did it come about? Was this just a wake you up in the middle of the night kind of thing? Or how did you come about with the idea with neighbor.com?
Sure. So I actually have to give all the credit for the idea to my co-founder, who leads our product and design teams now. He 6 years ago had the need himself, which I think is where most good ideas come from. He and his wife had just gotten married. A week after they got married, they flew down to South America to work for a humanitarian organization down there. And they needed a storage unit to put their items in the States while they were gone. And he looked into getting a storage unit and kind of had the same experience that I think most people have when they look into getting a storage unit. And that is that all the facilities close by were completely full. They didn't have any vacancies, that's a nationwide problem. Over half of all storage facilities are completely full. And so he was going to have to drive a half hour just to the next city just to find a vacant unit. And they were going to charge him several $100s a month, which he, at the time was working for this nonprofit. And as a student, he was like, I don't pay several $100s a month for almost anything. That's an incredibly large subscription payment. I pay $10 a month for my Netflix, $30 a month for my internet. $300 a month is a lot of money. And so he looked for a different solution and found a friend that was willing to let him store in his garage. Well, fast forward 4 months later, they get back from South America. My co-founder goes to pick his items up at his friend's garage, and he just has the thought, this was such a better experience. I felt so much more peace of mind knowing my items were in a nice, clean garage in a neighborhood I trusted than in one of those dirty storage units. Plus, I saved a ton of money. Why doesn't everyone do this? There's got to be empty space in every neighborhood in the country. He approached me about the idea. I remember immediately thinking, why has no one done this before? This is such a good idea. Why doesn't this exist? We started working on it together, and it resonated across the country. Again, we have people renting out space in their homes or their businesses in basically every city in the country at this point.
I love it. What's that? Mother of invention, necessity kind of thing is the answer there. That's awesome. So when you guys came up with the idea, I'm just kind of curious, how long did it take you to go from the idea to testing an app? Or is it an app? Is that the primary way people get on board?
So it's both a website and an app. You can find us at neighbor.com, or you can go to the App Store and type in neighbor storage, or really type in anything where you can type in boat storage or RV storage. We're the #1 ranked storage app in the App Store, so we'll come up whatever you type. And to answer your question, it didn't take long. We used what is kind of known as the MVP methodology, minimum viable product, where to see if people were interested in this, we stood up a very basic landing page that my other co-founder, there's three of us. My co-founder Colton, he quickly put together a landing page where you could put your email in if you were interested in becoming a host or a renter. It did not have the sophistication that our product does today, where you can do almost anything. It just was a way to show interest. And then we would manually connect people with that. We would call people up and connect them together the good old-fashioned way through the phones. And when that became too much, when we were having too much interest that it just did not make sense to do it through phones, we built additional functionality into the product. And that's how it went growing until now. You can do what you can search on a map, you can find exactly the storage space you're looking for. You can book it, you can pay all through. It'll manage your reservation for the life of your reservation. It'll automatically pay out the host when it's time to pay them out. It will, you can get property protection for your items on the platform. You can do anything you want today.
That's so cool. So the business itself. So you talked about kind of the starting off in the residential space and now moving to the commercial space. With the residential space, you were saying how originally you guys were basically connecting people, with the phone, and I imagine that was probably very useful for getting some live feedback that a click may not tell you the whole story.
That's right.
But I'm curious, tell me about how does it work as far as where do you guys sit in this relationship between the two parties? Are you a like an initiator, or are you an ongoing providing the fee collection and the rent distribution and facilitating all of the interaction for the length of the interaction, or how tell me a little bit about where you start and stop and how it works.
Yeah, it's the latter. So we sit alongside the full transaction, and we try to provide a seamless, positive experience for both parties from start to finish. So we're responsible for attracting the renters to our site. They come, unlike a traditional storage website where they're going to find one or two units in their area and they kind of take what they're given. They'll be able to find many options on our website, from commercial space they can store near their business, they can store near their residence. The top three things that renters care about when looking for a storage unit are price, security, and location. Location being the most important of those three. The average storage facility is a 30 to 40-minute drive away, according to the Self-Storage Almanac, because they're all zoned industrial, whereas we can find you storage 2 doors down. That's why we're called neighbor.com. We can find you storage in your business park, because we've often got one of the offices or retail locations close by renting out storage through us. And so it provides you great location options. Because there's so many options, there's price competitiveness. So you can find very affordable options. You can find more premium options, anything you're looking for. Then the renter, once they locate the space that they like, they can book that space directly. We do everything. They put in their credit card. We process the payment for them. We'll even ask them. We offer the best property protection of any storage company in the country. We're the only storage company that will give you up to $50,000 in protection for your items. And you can select a plan that's right for you. And then you can check out. The host will be notified. They'll be notified of what you'd like to store in their space. They'll get a chance to approve those items. And then once you're approved, you move into the space. And it's quite seamless and easy. We have a whole messaging platform that allows you to message back and forth between your hosts, so you don't have to share your contact information. You can do it safely and securely through our platform. We take care of paying out the host each month and making sure that they're satisfied. We help the host manage their reservation and know if there's anything they need to do. And then when it comes time to end the reservation, when the renter is time to cancel, we take care of that whole process and move out as well. And then we find the host a new renter for their property.
So the relationship between neighbor.com and the landlord, for lack of, is that what you call it, the landlord or the owner?
That's right.
Okay.
We call him the host, but yeah, the
The
landlord.
host. Okay, the host. Is there a contract between you and the host, or is the contract between the host and the tenant, or the what do you call the renter or the tenant? Do you call them the tenant
Yep.
or okay? It,
Yeah, we
or is
call it
it
the renter, but yes,
okay?
the landlord, the tenant, the host, and the renter.
Okay,
Yes, so we have a terms of service that governs our website. It's a very similar arrangement to if you've ever used Airbnb or Uber. Very, very similar relationship where both parties agree to the terms of service that create certain obligations between the two. So the renter and the host have obligations towards each other, and then also towards the platform, which is Neighbor. But we're a third party. Ultimately, the agreement's between you and the host, and we sit there and we can help adjudicate that. We're responsible for making it seamless, easy, safe, and just overall relaxing experience. Much more so than if you march down to that storage facility that's on the edge of town and you have to deal with someone, who may or may not know the answers to your questions. A lot of storage facilities, because they fill up so quickly, they don't have to provide any sort of technology. Many don't even have a way to securely keep your credit card. You'll give them your credit card and they'll write it down on an index card and go stuff it in a filing cabinet and run it each month. Whereas us, we process payments through the same provider that Amazon does. So it's very safe, secure transactions. And it's the online experience that I think we've all kind of grown accustomed to, where it's simple and easy.
got it. So the price of the storage, is that set by the host, or is that set by neighbor.com, or how's that how's that determined?
That's set by the host. We provide the host the flexibility to set whatever price they would like. Now, of course, many hosts have no idea what price they should set for their space. Neighbor, fortunately, has the best self-storage pricing data in the country, because we not only are able to see all the publicly available self-storage prices, and we pull those into our database from traditional self-storage providers, but also because we provide our hosts the flexibility to price at what they like, we get a lot of price variability. Some hosts will choose to price quite low, other hosts will choose to price quite high. And we're able to observe how fast they get rented and who gets rented. And we're able to take all that data and plug it into a very robust algorithm where when a new host signs up, we provide them a recommended price. We take into account their location, what features their space has. Is it climate controlled? Is it not? Does it have security cameras? Does it not? All these variety of things. What type of space is it? How convenient is it? And we spit out a price for the host and we say, you're 90% more likely to be reserved if you use our Neighbor recommended price. But feel free to ignore us, because ultimately you're a business owner. You can price how you'd like to, and we'll do our best to get you rented. But if you want our best advice, here it is. And then in addition to that, we have a smart pricing feature where some hosts will choose to go a step further and they'll sign up for smart pricing, where we set the price for them and we can adjust their prices with seasonality and just make sure they're always at the optimal price and at optimal occupancy.
Got it. So as far as the fee for neighbor.com, what would one expect as a host?
Yeah. So the way we structure our fee is the host will set their price. And typically the prices that hosts are setting are 30, sometimes 50% cheaper than a traditional self-storage unit. So the renter is getting in almost every city, they're getting the cheapest storage that you can find, period. So the renter's saving a lot of money. Renters on average save $1,000 to $2,000 a year by storing through our platform compared to a traditional self-storage unit. We like to say, if you store with Neighbor, we'll give you a stimulus check and savings every year for the rest of your life. So it's quite meaningful from the renter. So the way we structure pricing is we take what the host wants, what the host said they wanted to earn, And then we'll add a service fee on top of that, and we'll charge that to the renter. The renter's happy because they're getting storage even with our service fee for cheaper than they would at a traditional self-storage unit. The host is happy because they're getting what they asked for, and neighbor is able to make money on this service fee. Again, it's very similar to what you'll see if you go to Airbnb, where you'll see what the host charges, and then you'll see like an Airbnb fee. We do a very similar arrangement, and then we collect that each month.
Gotcha. And so how do you go about, screening or, what kind of measures are there in place to, ensure that you've got a credit worthy, somebody that's going to do what's expected kind of thing, or how does that all work?
Yeah, this is one of our big values as a platform. And the reason so many people like to do this on our platform. We actually discovered when we started Neighbor, we didn't invent the concept of space sharing. It turns out that a lot of people had been doing this informally before. They let their brother-in-law store their trailer on their property. What we did is come in and formalize it and make it safe so that everyone could do this. So a number of protections we provide. First, all of our hosts on our platform are ID verified. So we send them through a vetting system where they have to go through this full questionnaire about who they are and what their space is to make sure that they cross the bar to list on our space. Many platforms, they make this automated through technology. We do a lot of that as well. But in addition to that, we manually review, a human, manually reviews every single space before it is posted on our platform, which I think is a step above what many marketplaces do. Then, when the renter comes on, we require them to submit a full list of everything that they'll be storing. And that list is passed to the host before the host approves the reservation. The host is able to review that list, approve it. So if the renter wants to store, say, construction tools, and the host doesn't want construction tools in their space, the host can choose to reject that reservation according to their preferences. Now, other hosts, they would love to store construction tools, and so they'll approve that. And so there's a vetting process that takes place there as well. And we prohibit a number of items on our platform, so that's in the agreement that you're agreeing to when you're signing up on our platform. We don't allow any sort of perishables like food, etc., on our platform. And then finally, we take additional above and beyond steps to protect both parties. One, again, renters can rest assured that they can select property protection plans where they can get up to $50,000 in protection for their items. So if anything were to happen to those, neighbor will actually foot the bill to recover or replace those items. And then on the host side, they may worry, what happens if a renter stops paying? You asked about the credit worthiness. Well, neighbor, what we do is we say if the renter stops paying us, we'll continue to pay out the host. So we'll eat it and we'll foot the bill to continue to pay out the host, even though the renter has stopped paying us. And we'll take care of the process to remove those renters' items, because depending on the state you live in, there's different processes required to remove storage items from a space. And we take care of all of that on behalf of our hosts so that they never have to worry about that. So we try to cover all the bases so that a host can just say, I have space, here's the price. And a renter can say, I want that space. And that's all they ever have to think about, because we take care of all the ancillary situations that honestly happen very rarely, but when they do come up, we take care of them.
Yeah, I would think that'd be a lot of peace of mind, having, especially if it's a residence, you've got space and all of a sudden, the rent's not showing up or going through the awkward, eviction or removal of the person and not, perhaps knowing all the rules and how they continually change. How are the eviction rules for stuff as opposed to a residence?
So many people may be familiar with tenant protection laws that you deal with when you're renting a rental property out. For storage, they're not as strict as that. In some states, like it'll take 6 months to remove a person, a tenant from the space. Storage is a much simpler process that involves some notifications to the renter. And then if they still refuse to pay or come collect their items, then it involves an auction process. Many people are not aware that if a renter stops paying, you can't just throw those items away. They're still the property of the renter. So you have to run through a formal auction process. At Neighbor, we take care of that. So we run the auction process, and we can commit to most hosts that, if a renter stops paying, we'll have those items out within 60 days of that date. So it's a very quick process. And speaking of, you may have many people that listen to your show that are involved in renting out space, not for storage, but for tenants, a traditional rental property. And, I think that's a great comparison to our platform, and it shows how much further we go above and beyond. If you're going to use a traditional rental, management software, they're not going to, I've never heard of one that would foot the bill if your tenant who's renting a house stops paying for that. Neighbor goes above and beyond there to help cover that for our hosts. So it really is kind of a next level tenant management software.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a big appeal. Knowing that the mop up, if it comes undone, is not up to the host, and just I'm kind of curious, security wise, if you do have some sort of a situation. I know, like in Airbnb, a lot of the properties have like a key code, keyless, punch in the code kind of thing, get in. Is there any change of the entrance locks, et cetera, that you find needed, or is it kind of depends on the space? Or
So our hosts, when they're signing up their space, they get to select access. There's many different options for access to their space, and we give hosts flexibility in the access options that they select. For some of our residential hosts, they'll select by appointment only. So they actually won't even give the renter, a key or access to the space. The renter has to make an appointment to come by, visit the space, and the host will let them into the space. And that's how they manage it. And that's not a problem for most renters, because you don't store items you need frequent access to. You keep those items in your home. You store items that you're going to access once every 6 months or so. Many of our commercial landlords, we're doing a full build out, and we may put in keyless entry. And so each tenant is actually getting, a phone, a Bluetooth code where they can scan in to the space, or, a lock or something like that's their lock. So access varies from by appointment only to, we have the option to do business hours only, or after hours only, or 24/7 access. Many people renting out space for vehicle storage will allow 24/7 access, where you can come get that vehicle or RV or boat anytime you'd like. So it runs the gamut depending on the space type.
tell me on how does the commercial space vary or differ from the residential? And the reason why I'm asking, you'd mentioned about build out or putting in storage. Are you leasing the space and then putting in the storage equipment, or is that something that the host is doing and you're managing through the app and website?
That's something that the host is doing. So many times, say it's an office building and it's a 10-story office building, and they can get tenants on those upper floors because they're more attractive, but they've just struggled to rent out the first or the second floor for years. They'll come to us. We'll put together a whole monetization plan for the first floor, and we'll show them how much money they'll earn on that first floor every year. And we'll give them a few different options, build out options, depending on the earning potential they want to have on the space. And then that landlord, they can put up the CapEx to build that space out. It's very affordable. This is not like doing some sort of like residential conversion or something. Storage is very, very cheap to put in on a per square foot basis. And then we'll manage the build out on their behalf. So we'll actually bring in the contractors, et cetera, to get the units all built out. The landlord doesn't have to worry about that at all. And then after a couple months when it's built out, we'll start renting out the space. So no, we don't lease space, we don't buy space. It continues to be the landlord's space, their property, and they continue to be the revenue beneficiary. So all that revenue is coming to them.
Got it. Curious. I know Airbnb is run into some issues, local issues with perhaps zoning, or limitations like in different towns or resort towns or whatever on length of stay, et cetera, kind of thing. Is there anything potentially that faces neighbor.com in a similar kind of thing or anything like that's on your radar or concern?
Sure. Yeah, I think most marketplaces, whether you're Airbnb or Uber or DoorDash, most marketplaces, cities are just there's 19,000 cities in the country and they're all different, and so you run into items. Fortunately for Neighbor, we run into a lot less than those other platforms, particularly because we're not dealing with people. Regulations just go through the roof when you're dealing with people. We like to say, internally here at Neighbor, and we often refer to Airbnb as being in the business of storing people. Similarly, Uber is in the business of transporting people. And there's significant security risks with activities like that, going and sleeping in someone's house that you've never met before, or getting in a car with a stranger in Chicago when you land from the airport. I actually sometimes just think it's amazing that we as Americans have become like accustomed to this. I think it speaks to the general friendliness and goodwill that people have. It turns out that people are very good natured, and that if you put the right systems and structure in place, we can do a lot more sharing than we anticipated. But back to Neighbor, we're in the business of storing items. So there's a lot less risk associated with taking your, Christmas decorations and storing them 2 doors down in your neighbor's attic. One, because we're hyper local, right? We're not a destination marketplace. You're never going to talk to your Airbnb host ever again after you leave. You're never going to talk to your Uber driver ever again after you get out of the car. But on Neighbor, we're often joining people that, they're going to have a relationship far, far beyond just the storage relationship. They live in the same community. There's almost a social aspect to it as well. I guess I'm getting away from the question of local regulations. Certainly, some cities will have limitations on, the amount of vehicles that you can have, maybe limited to, 2 vehicles per person on a property. And so you have to pay attention to those. We advise hosts to always make sure to check their local regulations to make sure that the space they're renting out, is not limited in any way. But in the vast majority of cases, like there's no limitations on having someone else's stuff in your garage. You can have your own stuff in your garage, or you can have someone else's stuff in your garage. The city or the municipality or the state, they don't care which it is. So it's a much less invasive. You don't run into long-term rental stuff because, again, it's not a person. It's much less invasive activity.
No, it makes sense. I was just kind of curious because I know occasionally you'll see something or you'll hear something, and especially in the insurance business, I've got clients or prospects that have approached or have these seasonal or not seasonal rentals. They have just the short-term rentals, and boy, when I hear about the money some of them are making, it's like, oh my God. And then you hear about the other side of it is a challenge with some of the neighborhoods and that kind of thing. And okay, that's all you need is you think you've got something great, and all of a sudden, the rules change, and all of a sudden it goes from great to nothing. So something to be aware of. So just in the big picture, you mentioned some statistics about the percentage of demand for the facilities being 95% full in just the self-storage market. How big do you think the market is, or how, as far as the potential for neighbor.com? It seems to me like you've got a lot of built-in kind of just that locality piece that, like building a new facility, doesn't have. Is there
That's
any?
right. Yeah. I mean, storage, a lot of the most successful marketplaces, I think, start in very large but somewhat forgotten, kind of unsexy industries. You saw this happen with Uber and taxis, right? Taxis was just kind of this old, archaic industry. You saw it with Airbnb and hotels. They've made hotels exciting again. Like who was talking about, like, the local motel before Airbnb? It's just this huge archaic industry, and storage very much fits that bill. It's this old kind of archaic industry that people don't spend a ton of time talking about. I don't think most people realize just the sheer size of it. One way that helps me kind of approximate in my head, because you can talk billions of dollars all day long, but just in terms of locations, we've now built more storage facility locations in the United States than we have McDonald's, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Burger King's, Wendy's, Domino's Pizzas, Walmart's, Home Depot's, and Costco's combined.
Wow.
That's how many storage, and that's not counting the units inside of them. Of course, each location has hundreds of units. That's just counting each location as one location. So storage is a huge industry. You could fit every single man, woman, and child in the United States in a storage unit comfortably. Like, they would not be squished together. That's how much space we built. And yet, you might think, oh my goodness, with all of that space, it's got to be sitting empty. But no, it's the highest occupancy rate of any real estate asset class. Much higher occupancy rates than hospitality, much higher than office, much higher than retail, much higher than restaurant. It doesn't matter what the category is, nowhere comes close to 95% average occupancies nationwide. The industry's really been trying to solve this problem by building even more space than we've already built. The industry spends $4.5 to $5 billion a year just on new construction. So we're constructing $5 billion worth of new facilities every year. And guess what happens every year? 100% of them get filled up. And the occupancy rate has actually been climbing. We've been increasing the amount year over year that we're spending on new construction of storage. And yet the occupancy rate keeps going up, even though we keep building more. So that's the size of this industry. It's about a half a $1 trillion industry. The largest player in the space is a company called Public Storage. They're a $55 or $60 billion publicly traded company, is their market cap. And yet, Public Storage, being a $50 billion company, they only have 6 or 7% market share, meaning only 6 or 7% of renters nationwide store with them. That's the size of this industry. This is not like, it's very fragmented. So 85% of all market share in storage is controlled by mom and pop storage operators. 90% of storage companies in the United States have 4 employees or less. So it's a very fragmented, huge industry, and there's not enough space. We just need a lot of space, and it's being exacerbated by this housing crisis that we're seeing. It used to be that only the coastal cities were in a housing affordability crisis. San Francisco, New York. Now, it doesn't matter what large city you go to, Milwaukee, Austin, Salt Lake, they're all experiencing housing affordability crises. And as a family, as an individual, what do you do when you can no longer afford a home large enough for your family and your belongings? You buy a home big enough for your family, and you store your belongings in a storage unit that's much cheaper cost per square foot than a home is, than living space is. And so storage, it's got major tailwinds. We hope to be a part of the solution here by crowdsourcing space. We're able to unlock a lot. We don't have to wait for space to be built. We can unlock a lot more space. Millions and millions and millions of square footage can be unlocked through the power of sharing, the renter is able to save money. They don't have to pay those exorbitant prices to pay for the building of new units. They just pay the host enough to where the host is content with space that they weren't earning any money on before. And so any money they're earning is a net benefit for the host. And that way the money doesn't go to some $50 billion storage corporation. It goes to their host. Most of the money that Neighbor processes through its platform does not go to Neighbor. It goes to a small business owner, a homeowner or a business owner that is now earning thousands of dollars a month that can go to pay part of their mortgage, can go to pay for their family vacations, can go to pay, or if they're a large REIT that has space in every city, they're earning millions of dollars of ancillary income that makes their investments more return at a higher IRR. And so it's just so much more beneficial than going to some traditional self-storage company. And I think that we can come in and at least take, the 6 or 7% market share that Public Storage has, if not more. And so it gives you an idea of the size potential, where Public Storage is a $50-60 billion company. I think that's the size potential of Neighbor. I think we can get to that and more.
It's fascinating, just the opportunity and the potential, and just how you guys are situated. That's great. Hey, Joseph, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second.
Sure.
By day, I'm an insurance broker, and as such, I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there are 3 strategies we typically consider. We first look to see if there's a way we can avoid the risk, and that's not an option. We look to see if there's a way we can minimize the risk. And if we cannot avoid nor minimize the risk, we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And that's what an insurance policy is. It's a risk transfer vehicle. And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation. Could be your clients, your host, your tenants, investors, the political winds, or whatever it might be, and identify what you consider to be the biggest risk. And again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance-related answer. And so if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Joseph Woodbury, what is the biggest risk?
Yeah. This is an easy answer for me. Ironically, I think most people's largest risk is in their industry or in their business itself. And I could certainly think of risks there, but we've kind of talked about the storage industry. It's very robust. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't respond to recessions. During the 2008 recession, when most real estate asset classes contracted by 60%, storage grew by 5%. So it's very counter-cyclical and recession-proof. And so actually, I identify our biggest risk as a company is we're influenced not just by the storage industry, but because we're a software technology company, we're influenced by the venture capital industry. And if you look at other large marketplaces that have gone before us, they've raised a lot of capital to get to where they are. Airbnb is a $80 billion company. They just joined the S&P 500. So they are one of the most important companies in the United States of America, but they raised about $10 billion in capital to get there. Uber raised north of $15 billion in capital. Instacart and DoorDash have both raised, I want to say $6 or $7 or $8 billion in capital. So most major marketplaces raised large amounts of capital. To date, we operate in every city in all 50 states. We've raised a measly, $65 million in capital. So I often ask myself the question, will we be able to raise, those billions of dollars in capital like marketplaces that have gone before us to reach the potential that they have reached as mainstay brands in the United States? And I think that's the biggest risk. When I, as the CEO, sit down and think, it's not the storage piece. Renters love us. Hosts love us. Hosts are earning money. Renters are saving money. They keep growing. They keep transacting. They keep coming to the platform. It's we're dependent on this venture capital industry, and it goes through different cycles. It's in a pretty bear cycle right now, and that'll continue to happen. And we'll keep going through bear and bull cycles. But will that affect us, years down the road? will we go through some bear cycle that forces us to use other means of funding and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That risk that you face. I mean, that the capital markets and what they're going through, and kind of the ebb and flow of that, certainly affects a lot of things. And
the Fed is my biggest risk.
Right. No, that's been I think kind of a theme here as of late with the interest rates and the attempts to slow inflation and all that, and hopefully soft landing, and we can continue on and pick up the pace again, and best of luck to you with that. Joseph, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Yeah. So we, just like our platform, we've tried to make it easy to use the platform, but we've also tried to make it easy to find the platform. So the company's called Neighbor, and you can go to neighbor.com to either sign up as a host or become a renter. If you're a large landlord and you have a lot of property in a lot of cities, then you can also reach out to us. We have several pages if you scroll down our homepage where you're able to submit your information, and we can get you in contact with an account representative that will help set you up across your portfolio. You can also email sales@neighbor.com. And then finally, we're on the App Store. So you can find storage or list your space on our mobile app. You just search Neighbor Storage. The app is called Neighbor. It's on Google Play. It's on the App Store. It's on the Apple App Store. You can find us pretty easily.
Awesome. Well, Joseph Woodbury, I can't say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Likewise, it was great to spend some time with you, Darren.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.